Today I'm going to show you a pandiculation with assistance. So we're going to use a prop, either an air-filled ball, and this size isn't so important, so if you have one of the lime green ones or an orange ball, that will also work. And if you don't own a ball, you're going to get a baseball cap and a towel. So ball first, you're going to take the pin out, and I want you to take out as much air as you can. And I'm just going to keep doing this for a second. If you're going to use a cap, we need a domed surface, all right? So that's the purpose of the baseball cap. And I've put a towel inside of it to give it a little shape. You want to pick a towel that's not going to pack it really tight, because I don't want it to be hard like a basketball would be. I want it to still have give because it is replicating this air-filled ball. Okay, so that's a little smush. If you're using a ball, back to that. So like I've squished it till there's almost no air in it. And when it feels like it's empty, there's enough air in it still for what we need. Either of these props is gonna act like a bolster. All right, so you put the pin back in, you're good to go. Now, let's talk about why I don't have a shirt on. 2 reasons. First, I want you to have just a clear sense of where your prop is going to go. So I want you to imagine where your heart is and visualize what that would be in the back of your body. And so we're gonna lay the prop against the back of your heart center. And I'm going to say heart center because I'm just talking about a zone. I don't care about your actual organ of your heart, just its existence in the center of your chest cavity. One of the benefits of this pandiculation will be to improve motion in this part of your body. So if you're hunched at a computer a lot, this will be useful. Or if you have scoliosis, people with scoliosis in this region, it's really tough to isolate mobility to where they need to affect their scoliosis. And those twists and curves of the spine are tricky. And your body's usually really good at moving anywhere except the scoliosis. So this is a great way to bring intention and attention to that area. Second reason, I said there were 2. The second reason I have no shirt on is I want you to focus on your belly core. And I'm saying belly core on purpose because this is not the image of the rock hard Pilates abs like I'm posing in a muscle magazine. We spend so much time making contraction and tension in that area, and while that might be good for aesthetics, that's actually really bad for your health. Everything in your body needs a balance of tension and compression, and your torso is no different. Even if you think about a breath cycle, the pressure in your abdomen has to change. The belly has to expand and contract to let your diaphragm go up and down for your best breathing, your best respiration. So I'm going to use this time to not worry about how I look and not worry about the tone of my core. So as you're watching this tutorial before you go to your own practice, check my belly out sometimes and just watch how I use my breath and kind of the expression of I want to say distending, no, expanding my abdomen and contracting my abdomen just to create more movement. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'm going to put this behind my mid-back as promised. And I would suggest, like, just watch me do this once and never watch this again, please. You want to do your own practice, not imitating me, but just taking this video as an inspiration, because pandiculation is always a time for you to tune in and find your own flow of movement. So I've placed the ball right behind my heart, and I'm going to start out with my knees bent and my feet flat, which will be safest for your low back, just if that's an area of concern. You're going to relax your arms by your sides, and I want you to start exploring very small motions that originate from the fulcrum created by the ball. The dome shape allows motion in different planes. So you'll find as you begin the impulse, you have the room to do flexion and extension, small rotations of your ribs, and then lateral flexion, that's side bending. And because the air or the towel is always moving underneath you, you will immediately notice that you're kind of combining 2 planes of motion. And an impulse that starts small here is to make sure you can feel what's available in that region, but that impulse is a wave, and it's meant to fan out. So like you can think of like ripples in a pond. It's meant to spread so that the movement, while it starts from here, does eventually start to move your trunk. Okay, so now I'm experiencing different planes of motion at my pelvis as well. That already was its own fulcrum, one that can move pretty easy, but it's relating to the ground. Okay, so it's got the floor to permit movement, like to be anchored to movement, I should say, and the back of my head. So a lot of times we talk in our Pilates classes about masses and spaces, and I refer to these bony landmarks of your pelvis, your ribs, and your head as anchor points when you're laying on your back, or as reference points to your posture when you're standing. So you're going to begin from that singular impulse and then start to switch to more of a dual awareness, either of movement of your body and then to your breath, which you're not trying to make, you're just trying to witness, allowing the breath to happen and just bringing your consciousness to its function. And then you can bring your awareness back to the physical motion again. And you can use those three masses as just places to explore in your mind. A third thought is to just think of the freedom of motion your spine has. So your spine's linking the three landmarks, but the spine itself has many, many joints and a lot of potential for motion, especially when you're safe and supported like we are in this position. I like to do animal imagery here, so snake, is the easiest one, but I think water snake right now, because I wouldn't just be slithering like a snake would on land. I've got more potential for different motions if I can imagine having the support of floating in water. Okay, so you've seen just my torso going. Well, I do have limbs. I'm not an actual snake. So variables you can add to change the relationships and bring more focus into your hips and your shoulders as they relate to this heart center. I would start with just maybe moving one limb in a different position. If you are one of the scoliosis people, I'd start with the arms. I mean, if the scoliosis is here specifically, because one of the things that will clamp down to keep you locked in your scoliosis are your lats, a muscle that go from your low back to your shoulder. So they actually bypass the region that we're working on. But when I reach my arm overhead, it's stretching that muscle a little bit and just changing that relationship where it can't be clamped down might let you move this area more than you do in your standing posture. And you would do it with the other arm. I'm just not going to bother because, again, you're not doing this with me. Now, same thing with your leg. I can just play with one leg out, which changes how my hips are going to express motion. And this is not a Pilates workout, so there's kind of no rules. You'll see my leg that's bent is moving because I'm kind of driving some of the impulse. When my attention goes down away from my heart center, I'm using my foot to create an impulse that kind of drives the wave back up to my heart center. Okay, so that's another thing to explore. Recently I've been talking about arching and curling, and so one of our primitive reflexes, like baby-wise, is the startle response. And so you can put yourself in the startle position, the arms up in kind of a goalpost shape, and still just working on the same wiggle. But that'll help you relate to a little more of an extension. So that's back to the computer worker now, not the scoliosis person. But if you're hunched forward all day, or you've been spending a lot of time on your phone, or sitting on your couch watching TV, this might be good to balance it out. Our limbs could also go to the air. Like if you're used to doing a lot of pandiculation work, there would be nothing wrong with you starting to explore larger motions. Always begin with that smaller impulse that I showed you so that we're not bypassing micro movement. I want micro movement to be present even as I go to macro movement. And so if you start to lose the sense of little when you're moving more big things around, just pause. I mean, it's good to pause every once in a while anyway and just change it up. So now I'm going to start wiggling from my toes and let that micro motion find its way back to my heart eventually. So I'm playing around with the life within my foot, letting that turn into more expression in my leg. And I wasn't really thinking about it, but apparently my hand wants to move too. so I'm not gonna stop it. And then as I let the toe fingers guide where I'm going, you can see my hip starts to come more into the expression. I'm feeling a lot of compression and then expansion in my shoulder, which I'm sorry you can't see because I'm using the wrong arm. And then that's starting to bring motion back into my tummy and then my ribs. And then I'm just gonna pause again, just since I brought that up. And now I'm gonna take this still motion and I'm gonna make the intention of going from the heart and sending it back out. One of the things that I find this always surprises me and is fun in the pandiculation is that if I've used the sense of my wholeness and really engaging my fluid fascial network, I can feel like I'm in water, like I said before, that the weight of my leg right now doesn't feel heavy because I'm not trying to use muscular effort like I do in weight training or when I'm using like the Pilates reformer and stuff. Instead here, I'm trying to forget that I have individual parts. The bones are not important, the contractile muscle fibers are not important, and instead I'm trying to cue in to everything in between those structures that we know, that the connective tissue is transmitting the impulse or the force of my motion, and then I can feel light. I'm just trying to make a gesture and my body is trying to do this with the most ease of motion possible. So if you're gonna do this in your practice, I mean, this is a great 5-minute reset if you just wanna do a quickie, but if you have time, I mean, I think it's really great to do this, oops, sticks to your back, to do this for like 20 minutes, half an hour. I mean, God, when I really am feeling luxurious, we do this practice sometimes for an hour and a half or 2 straight. But if you're gonna do it for a longer amount of time, the stop and start is really important. I'm obviously not gonna wiggle for 2 hours straight. So you're gonna break this up with moments of stillness or take the ball away and just lay in constructive rest for a little while and let your body drop in. Notice the effect of a round, like maybe you do 5 minutes, you stop and lay on your back for 2 minutes, and then you bring it back again and you start the impulse. You can also add soundings, you know, if you're good with an om, if you don't really like an om, any vowel sound is a great place to start, just to get, you know, more of the feeling of vibration running through your body. And that's just gonna bring awareness through into your wholeness. If making sounding is weird, period, just do big exaggerated breaths. A sigh, like that's not weird to do, but a sigh is a noise and will also make you aware of movement through your body. Okay, have fun exploring.